Come to Candlelight Inn, home of the original Chicken George and Jan Sauce. Dine in, carry out, and catering available. Located in Rock Falls and Sterling, Illinois, as well as Clinton, Iowa. Come try our original Chicken George today.
Need a roof, vinyl windows, or doors? Call R.E. Duchesne Construction. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau and servicing Will, Grundy, and Kendall counties, call R.E. Duchesne. 815-722-2821. Financing available. Find out more online at reduchene.com.
Are going to come right down to the wire. Yeah, he really likes this field. Team of the Week MVP.
I like Reich.
Since 2016, it's been my privilege to represent the people of the 63rd District. I want to continue representing you as an independent voice in Springfield.
I like Reich. We like Reich.
We're here to help you with your problems that result from an automobile accident or an injury on the job or the loss of a loved one. There's no reason you should go through this alone and guess that you're doing things right.
We deal with tragedies that affect families and individuals every day.
Come here and protect your interest. We've been doing this collectively for over 100 years. Let's put that experience to work for you.
What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Friday Night Drive podcast. I am Kyle Nabors along with Steve Soucie. We are here live on YouTube and Facebook on Monday morning, October 30th. We're here to recap the first round. Souce, you got to see a lot of football this weekend, my man.
Yeah, I was finally able to kind of get out and get back to my old stomping grounds of running around on sidelines, and got a little soggy. There was quite a bit of water on Friday night in that Peoria-Joliet Catholic game. So finally around the third or fourth quarter, I started to dry out a little bit. And Saturday I was able to go over and see Providence and Morton, and then a not so quick jaunt up a couple of interstates, and I was able to catch the second half of the St. Charles North Bradley Bourbonnais game, which was right in my backyard. So able to catch quite a bit of football this weekend, and been in the studio for the last 6 weeks or so. So I haven't been able to kind of get out and see it live, and it was definitely nice to get back out there.
Yeah, it was great to be out on the sidelines myself. I was out there on Saturday afternoon taking in Nazareth and Prairie Ridge, of course, a big game on Saturday. We'll get into that. Of course, go to FridayNightDrive.com. We have a ton of content up there right now from over the weekend. We dropped what we learned in the first round from Souce this morning. We'll have everything coming your way this week for the second round. You can follow us on Twitter at FNDrive. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. If you search for Friday Night Drive, we're also on TikTok as well. You can follow myself on Twitter at Kyle Nabors. You can follow Souce on Twitter at the Souce. Of course, during the postseason, we do this live twice a week on Mondays and Thursday mornings at 11 a.m. You can join us live on YouTube and Facebook. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We really do appreciate it. That helps other people find the show. And you can leave us questions, comments, and I already see a few people in the chat here, starting with Go Naz from Mark. And, Souce, I think that's probably the most logical place to start here when we look at the first round. I mean, at a minimum, this game probably should have been played in the quarterfinals, right? I think everyone would agree with that. It was an unfortunate way that the bracket broke down, but it is what it is. And Prairie Ridge came into the game. I was over there. Alex Kantecki was over there. Joe Stevenson, all three of us actually taken in that game on Saturday afternoon. And Joe, made sure to point out at one point that Prairie Ridge had only had 3 turnovers all season long. They had 3 in that game, lost 3 fumbles. It's hard to win a football game against a team like Naz when you have 3 turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, the margins there were slim. Looking at it on paper, this is so far from being what you would expect from a 2-15 game in a bracket situation. It just, I mean, logically, when you looked at it on paper, when I went through my first round picks, and I picked Prairie Ridge to win the game, but if I had to make a list of the 5 to 10 games in the first round that I wrestled with the most, that game definitely would have been on either of those lists. I struggled with it. I didn't really know which way to go. And when I heard through the grapevine, I was following along on Twitter, but the games kind of coincided with where it was pivotal in my game as well. So I wasn't watching it minute to minute down the stretch. Somebody messaged me, and all the message said was "Whoa, Naz," and I was like, "Well, I'm assuming that meant Naz won." But my reaction to it wasn't really surprise. Like I wasn't floored by the fact that Naz had won the game. So that kind of typifies the way that I kind of felt about it going in the game. Whoever, it was going to be those little margins, and turnovers in a situation like that can be the decider and make the difference in a small margin game like that.
Yeah, they Prairie Ridge had a fumble deep in Naz territory in first half that they lost. They also had another drive stopped in Nazareth territory. And then so it's tied 14-14 at half. Prairie Ridge comes out and has another fumble in Nazareth territory. Naz goes down and scores. At that point, it really felt like Prairie Ridge had a lot of work to do to get back in that game, and they just never could quite get back over the hump. I want to say the first time I really, in a while, have gotten a chance to see Logan Malachuk up close. The kid can sling it. He was terrific in the game. Several key throws for touchdowns. He also had a terrific touchdown run. Very, very impressed with him. I see Mark down here as well, commenting Gabe Kaminsky beast. Yeah, Gabe Kaminsky, very impressive. That's a Naz team that's going to be a very, very difficult out in the 5A playoffs, Zeus.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that I get another chance to see them live, because I have to go all the way back to week 1 to get my frame of reference for them. And, I saw what you saw in Logan Malachuk in very small bursts in that game that lost to Kankakee. He was trying a lot of low percentage throws that I think he was accustomed to completing, and Kankakee's secondary did a pretty nice job with him. Eventually had to just kind of give up and use his feet to move the football, and he did that very effectively. And then with Kaminsky, I don't want to say he got locked up in that game, but Kankakee has a Division I tackle prospect who's committed to Georgia, and he kind of slowed Kaminsky down a little bit. So I didn't see either of those two guys with their best foot forward. So I'm hoping maybe I get a chance to see them in a further round to fully see their skills on display.
Alex checking in this morning says, "Hello, gentlemen. How about the BBCHS Boilermakers?" Yeah, Souce, you got to go over there and see that game. You said you saw the second half, the win for the Boilermakers over St. Charles North. What were your takeaways from that?
Well, when I got there, it was 14-7 Bradley, and I'd been listening to the game on the radio on my way up to go see it, and it seemed like it was a fairly evenly matched game between two teams there. When I showed up, and I don't know, maybe I can take some credit for this. I showed up, the Boilermakers just flipped the switch. I mean, an excellent game from Ethan Cole at the quarterback position. Not really known that much as a running type of quarterback, more of a thrower, but apparently Bradley saw something in the scouting report of what they could use him as a runner, and they did. He broke off like a 50-yard run that I just did not see as part of his arsenal. I think he's a very good quarterback, but
yeah,
but I just didn't see him as being kind of a dual threat type of guy. But he showed some moves. I mean, I was really surprised by that. And this Bradley defense is pretty good. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily got the credit that it deserves, but it can make some plays, and they really gave Ethan Plum a hard time. He really never found a groove while I was there. And maybe it was something to do with the conditions, but both teams had to play in it. I mean, it was a steady drizzle, light rain, almost the entire second half. but definitely an impressive performance for the Boilermakers, especially Ethan Cole.
Yeah, Bradley's going to get a second round matchup here with Normal Community. Seuss, I haven't seen this Bradley team play. Of course, you and I used to see them play a lot back in the day at our old job. And I think back to, I'm going to get the year wrong, maybe 2014, the year that Bradley made it to the state semifinals against Libertyville. That was a really, really good Bradley Bourbonnais team that had a good defense, was explosive on offense. Can you give me a little frame of context, after seeing them against St. Charles North, how good comparatively? Is this a team that you think could be a quarterfinal or semifinal team?
I mean, I think they have a pretty tall task in this game in the second round against a Normal Community team that is kind of flying under the radar because they don't come from an area of the state that typically produces 7A, 8A powerhouses, but they're very interesting offensively. They have a lot of speed on the outside that they can utilize. And Alex has mentioned AJ Mancia in the middle of that Bradley defense. He's kind of the core there for them. I think what it comes down to is, when they play someone like Normal Community, I mean, will they be able to match up in type of a shootout game that I think that game has the potential to develop into? I'm not sure about the answer of that, but they are they're an interesting team. They have a lot of players that they can go to and get stuff done. And, Ethan Cole runs the show and shows the signs of not only one being a coach's son that has experience playing the quarterback position that has passed that along, but a guy who has a lot of experience under center, doesn't seem to get rattled very much, and knows how to utilize his tools to the best of his ability.
All right, Sus, I'm going to go ahead and if I can get there we go. I'm going to go ahead and throw this on screen here. And let's see, did I miss anything in the comments before we move on? You know what? I'm going to pull this back off just for a second here because I do want to. You got a question from Zachary. We'll do this before we start kind of going class by class here. Answer his question. Do you think there's a fix to the public league issue? Zachary asked. The public league finished 0-22 and was outscored. By a lot. But when you say 0-22, they did have a couple winners, right, Zeus?
They had 2 wins, but they were against other Chicago public league schools. So
yeah. So I want to clarify that.
I think what the question is asking is clarifying there. I'm not sure about this, but he's saying in the 22 games where they didn't play a Chicago public league team as the opponent, they were 0-22. I'm not sure about that scoring margin. It was pretty wide. The only public league school that actually had a chance to beat a non-CPL school appeared to be Noble Johnson, who lost by 1 point to Stillman Valley in the Class 3A ranks. But, in attempting to answer his question, I think there are some things that could mitigate this a little bit. I don't know if the IHSA and the public league would ever go along with it. Those that don't know, the public league is divided into the red and the blue divisions, the red and the white. And then there's a blue division that doesn't qualify for the playoffs at all. But the red teams tend to be the better CPL programs, the ones that might have a shot of competing in those games. The white divisions are developing programs and programs that are unlikely to have any chance of picking up a win in the state playoffs should they get there. What I would personally like to see is if you're going to let the white playoff teams qualify, then they have to go in at the bottom of the field. They need to be the bottom seeds after you determine who else gets in. Like I said, I don't think anyone would go along with that, but I mean, there were a couple of white division teams that ended up with 1 seeds in the bracket and they got absolutely destroyed. So, that's something that I think needs to be looked at. I don't know if it ever will. But I think that would be something that would mitigate some of these problems. I don't think you can tell them not to participate in the playoffs. They have that right just like everybody else. But I think there needs to be some sort of weighted system because this happens. It's not like this is an isolated issue. This happens every single year. We get 22 to 25 playoff teams in the field from the Chicago Public League, and they all get pretty much pounded in the first round of the playoffs. So, at least if you put them at the bottom of the draw, it's fair to the teams that are involved in the playoffs that are not from the public league, because as a top seed, you deserve a game like that. What we had happen this week is we had a couple of 16 seeds, 15 seeds, 14 seeds winning first round games, and other situations where there were 2 and 3 seeds, they got locked up with an absolute powerhouse. And
Prairie Ridge Naz, for instance.
Prairie Ridge Naz, for example. So there's got to be a better way to balance that than the system that we're using now, especially that little quirk this year that had 2 white division teams, ending up as the top seeds in their respective brackets. And there's just no way that should have been allowed to happen.
Yeah, I think, Zachary, they're down the road. I could also see, Susan, this is a far more radical thing, but at some point we're going to see like an 8-man playoff be incorporated more closely, I think, with the IHSA. We're seeing participation numbers where we're seeing 11-man teams drop out. I think at some point we could see like a private school playoff, an 8-man playoff, maybe 6 classes. And then like if you wanted to, you could do a public league playoff too, and just give the option to play up into the IHSA main field each year, something like that.
Yeah, I think that might be, a potential solution. For me, it's like when we start talking about districts again, if we end up going to some sort of district system, I don't know how you solve this problem.
Yeah,
because you're going to have to infiltrate those CPL programs into these districts. And what we're seeing in the playoffs, we'll see on a weekly basis in the regular season. If we end up, kind of throwing everybody in the pot and then sorting them out into districts with, half public league, half non-public league, and those will be really, really sloppy. So, for whatever you have to say about whether or not the district system will work, they need to solve that problem, whether we stay in conference system or district system. They need to figure out some way to accommodate for that.
This is a perfect time for me to plug being a subscriber for Friday Night Drive and all of ShellLocal.com, because, just because the season is going to be ending here in 4 more weeks doesn't mean our coverage is going to be concluding. We'll have all of our postseason stuff like usual, but beyond that, the district measure is back, or probably going to be back on the ballot for a vote this year in December. It was passed once before and then rescinded. I have no idea how this is going to go, but there's definitely going to be a lot going on to talk about football wise, right, Seuss?
Yeah, it's like you said, it hasn't been put on the ballot yet. I've been led to believe that it probably will be. But I think once again, it becomes a discussion of transparency. What does this district proposal look like? How does it deal with some of these things? And people ask, well, why did it get rescinded last time? That was the problem. Like, a lot of people did not know what this system would look like, and they got cold feet because we saw some mock districts. A lot of people did not like them, and they were like, hey, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
So
this is not what we signed up for. No, it's exactly what you signed up for.
Yeah. If districts is something that we want, I think for the benefit of everybody, it needs to be a transparent process. It needs to be said, hey, these are the problems that we see in the conference system. This is how the districts fix them, guys. And show you how it works instead of some random grouping of teams that doesn't really make sense. So, like I said, like you said, there'll be a lot to discuss in this offseason. Obviously, changes in this and changes in that, and sorting it all out is kind of, one of the chores of the offseason. But this year might be a little bit more interesting. I still have my doubts whether or not the district proposal will pass unless we're shown something that says, hey, this is a superior system. Because from talking to people, there are some people that are advocates for districts in a big way. But when you start really digging into it, does the Catholic League want the Catholic League to disappear? That's what districts does. Do the public league want to be infiltrated in with everybody else? Or do they want to keep doing their own thing? That's what districts does. I mean, some of these conferences, as much as people complain about, conference jumping, some of them are really stable and they work for people. So, right. I mean, and there are reasons why people don't play people. And you lose that autonomy as an athletic program if you say, here, IHSA, put us in a district. So, we struck
a nerve with the district talk today.
Well, we talked about this before. I can go all day on this. But it's what I want. I mean, if you have a better system, fine. That's fine. Because I have problems with the current system, and I can go on those all day too. But show it to me. Don't just tell me it's better. Trust us. Because that's kind of what happened last time.
Yeah, absolutely what happened last time. But all right, we'll get to more of that in the off season. Let's go ahead, Suze. I'm gonna pull the brackets back up on the screen. We'll go through 1A through 8A. If you guys have questions as we go along, I'll try and keep up with those. Suze, and we don't obviously have to hit on every game in each class here. So let's just pick out some things that you found interesting, and we'll work our way from there. So where do you want to start?
Wherever you want to go is fine by me.
Well, 1A was pretty predictable, I felt. Rova beating Newman Central Catholic, a little surprising, I guess, but not all that much. Althoff Catholic, man, 76 points against Tuscola. I know this Tuscola team is down, but that caught me a little bit not by surprise. It just kind of reinforces that this Althoff team is going to be a really, really tough out in 1A.
Yeah, and it's one of the things when you look at it, they're in 1A, and a lot of people aren't real thrilled about that. They had lost their multiplier because of the fact that they were basically playing like a 5A, 6A equivalent schedule, and were having a hard time getting into the playoffs because of that. Well, they're still playing a pretty large group of schools that have large enrollments, but this is a really talented group. I was kind of tipped off to him in the summer by one of my friends down that way. He was like, Belleville Althoff's going to be dangerous in 3A. And I looked him in the face and I said, they're not 3A. He's like, what, 2? I said, no, they're 1. And his jaw just dropped. So he was like, I mean, he didn't even realize it. He thought they were like a 3A program that was going to make some noise up there. And when I told him they weren't multiplied and they were going to drop to 1A, like, he was floored, and he was absolutely right. The extremely fast team, athletic, makes plays, can score seemingly at will. And at the 1A level, they're bringing a level of athleticism that you don't often see at that classification.
Got anything else in 1A, Suze? I felt like it was
pretty chalky to me. Like, I really felt like when I finally sorted through the results a little bit on late Saturday afternoon, early evening, I didn't see anything that really kind of threw me. There were a couple of games that I thought might go the other way, but nothing was like, oh my goodness, I just didn't see that coming. So I thought this week was going to be where we saw a lot of interesting matchups, and we'll get to that later in the week. But the first round, I didn't see a whole lot of games that were going to be all that compelling, and they certainly didn't play out that way.
Yeah. All right, let's go to 2A here. We talk about that 2A North bracket being loaded. The top seeds on that side pretty much held serve. That Rockridge score, I think we've talked about Rockridge a little bit in recent weeks. Not surprising to see them pick up the win against Westville there.
I wasn't surprised at all. They played so well in the Three Rivers with the 8-1 record. Handed Morrison their only loss, and I like that Morrison team a lot. The only thing for them I thought might be challenging was that significantly long road trip. But other than that, they did a really nice job getting through there. The thing that really stood out to me, and I knew this was going to happen kind of regardless of the way the results came out, barring a couple of upsets, but the collective record of the North bracket is 76-4 as we head into the second round. And I had a couple people asking me this week if I can ever remember anything like that. And I'm going to be honest, I can't. I can't ever remember a collective record of one side of the bracket being that good heading into the second round of the tournament. So, I kind of compared it a little bit to the 3A North of last year, but even that group, I looked it up, had 7 collective losses. So it's definitely a really unique group, and some thunderous second round matchups being set up in the North.
It's probably a good time to pull up this question from Adam. He says, do you think the push for 1 through 32 seeding gets louder from smaller schools after round 1 results?
I don't know if it gets louder. I think it starts to resonate a little bit more when people talk about it. It's a discussion that seems to not really come up until now. and then it disappears again. It just kind of falls off the wayside, and then everybody gets charged up about it when we actually get into playing the games or when the actual brackets are released. It's now it seems that discussion has seemed to be been put on the back burner for the time being. But I think it probably comes raging back if we still have this playoff system in place in the future.
So my nephew texts me asking who Moments played, and at first he goes, "Is it an Aurora team?" And I go, "No." And then he got excited because it wasn't an Aurora team. I'm not even sure who he thought it was going to be. But then I told him Royal Forsyth. He goes, "Is that good?" I go, "No." But really, in 2A North, there was never going to be a good answer that I was going to give you, buddy. So
yeah, there was no. I mean, like if you offered a team the opportunity to pick their poison here, I don't know if they're really getting a good choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you said, here, I'm going to give you these 6 teams, you get to pick. I think you wrestle with it a little bit, and I don't think there's anyone on the list that you go, yeah, we got those guys. I mean, that's how deep it is. It's just, and I was kind of the opinion that maybe Bismarck Henning would pull off that upset and upset the apple cart a little bit here. They were close, but they weren't able to do that. But everybody else just kind of, manhandled their way into the next round. Moment struggled a little bit with Knoxville, but a really strong defensive effort from them. They're going to need that this week against Monroe Forsyth.
Yeah. On the south side of the bracket, our first, what I would say, Quincy Notre Dame, Arthur Lovington. What did you think of that?
Well, I kind of called that one. I kind of sensed that one might be coming.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk badly about Arthur's conference because I don't know that much about it, but I wasn't sure if it had prepared these teams, in the right way for the 2A playoffs. I guess that's proving to be correct, as all of those teams did not advance out of the first round. But you could kind of sense that maybe that was going to be one of those 16-1 games where the 16 might win. Quincy Notre Dame playing a very eclectic schedule. Let's just say that, opening with a couple of Illinois teams in much larger classifications that kind of handed it to them.
Yeah.
Including crosstown rival Quincy, a 7A school that advanced in the playoffs. Played 5 games in Missouri. So getting a really good feel for them was hard, but you got the sense in this one that they were a little bit more prepared for the rigors of the 2A draw than Arthur was.
Nashville doing Nashville things, Seuss.
I expected Nashville to win that game. I didn't expect them to win by that margin, but I don't
49-7.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Pena in the second half of the season. I don't know if it was injuries or what went on, but they seem to be a much stronger team in the first half of the season. They kind of struggled down the back half. So when I did see the score, I kind of went, whoa, for a second, but then I really started to think about it, and I'm like going, that kind of fits with what we saw over the second half of the year.
Let's go on to 3A unless you got anything else here.
No, we're good.
All right, let's do it. 72 points for Byron against the Chicago Public League team. Man, that's I don't even know what to say about that.
Well, I will say this on the one comment about it. They passed the 600 point mark on the season with that point total from this week. I'm not sure any team has ever passed the 600 point mark after 10 games. Like, that's what we're talking about here. Like a historic amount of offense. Like I mentioned it in today's column, but they are within striking distance of the state record for points scored if they were to run the table and get to the state championship game. It's within their sights. So, which is just over 800 points by Peoria, by the way. So they may have 4 more cracks at it. So it'll be interesting to see if they can run that down, because
it's not like you think about that with Peoria, like Peoria just running that insane wide open offense. It's not like Byron is out there slinging the ball around.
No,
they probably have a dozen pass attempts on the season, maybe.
Yeah, it's incredible how well they run that system. It just really is. It's just, I mean, I've seen them live several times, and it's kind of similar to what Wilmington does, and it's the same argument that I've heard about Wilmington football for so many years. What's coming. Why is it so hard to stop it? Well, it just is, guys. I guarantee if you went out there and tried it, it's not as easy as you think it is. And they run it so well.
Yeah. All right. Elsewhere in 3A, we're looking at Seuss. Monmouth Roseville wins 35-14 over North Boone. I know you and we've had some questions about those second level teams, or second tier teams in the Big Northern Conference. Between that and Stillman Valley really struggling to get by that CPL team, I kind of had that one. I feel like that was confirmed for us.
Yeah, I mean, and then you look higher up on the bracket, and I expected this too. Oregon was
Yeah.
another team that lost in the 3A bracket kind of handily to a very good DuPec team, but we had talked, like you said, we mentioned it before, just that second tier of the Big Northern, not quite at the level that they usually are at this point. Everybody was chasing Byron like usual, but the gap was much wider than it usually is between Byron and the rest of the conference, it appears.
One of my favorite first round matchups in any class this weekend was Tolono Unity and Williamsville, two teams that we're used to seeing play in state semifinals and state championship games. Tolono Unity 35-21 win over Williamsville, Seuss.
Yeah, and you look at that game, and obviously both of those two teams have a lot of postseason pedigree. We've seen them in 3A finals, as recently as just a couple of years ago in both of those cases. So to see them on those lines in the first round, kind of telling. A good week in general for the Illini Prairie Conference. You can look down there. You see St. Joe Ogden with a victory, Tolono Unity with a win, Bloomington Central Catholic winning in 2A. So overall, that was a good showing for that league, which I think honestly is one of the better 2A, 3A, 4A type of conferences in the state of Illinois that doesn't get a lot of respect for that, but it's a very deep league.
I'm going to keep us moving right along, Seuss, because we are already past a half an hour. Thank you, everyone who is joining us live on YouTube. You can give us a question or comment in the chat there. We will get to those as we can. Of course, please do subscribe to the channel and leave us a thumbs up. We appreciate it if you can do that for us. Seuss, over here in Class 4A, one of the bigger surprises, I guess, is St. Viator 14-0. I was talking with Joe Stevenson about this on Saturday watching Prairie Ridge and Naz, and I had mentioned it on the podcast a couple of times that I was concerned with the RB offense. They had not fared well against, top competition this year. So I thought St. Viator had a chance in this game. Still, I was frankly shocked to see RB shut out at home by St. Viator.
Yeah, I mean, after it's over in hindsight, I was like, maybe I should have sniffed that one out. St. Viator, plays such a difficult schedule. They had what I classify as kind of a signature win for that program over Montini, a team that I really like to do a lot of damage in the 3A bracket. And, there were some signs that maybe, but it's just so hard to, I don't want to say write off Richmond Burton, but it's so hard to discount them just based on their track record. It's so very difficult to say, okay, maybe this isn't where Richmond Burton has been in the past, and maybe pick an upstart like St. Viator to win that game. But you could see some of those signs, but I never in a million years would have thought that they would have been shut out at home in this game. I just wouldn't have seen that coming.
Yeah, I did not at all. Dixon, there's a Big Northern team, picks up a win over Plano. This bracket, for the most part, Seuss, went as I expected on the north side. I see Zachary down here in the comments. I can pop that over. Let's see here. Get where I want it to go. There it goes. Any thoughts on Kewanee, Peoria, Notre Dame? That's Peoria, Notre Dame, the 14 seed. Seuss picked up a 28-13 win over number 3 Kewanee.
This is one of those situations where you kind of look at it on paper and you wonder how the disparity in the two schedules is going to play out. Peoria, Notre Dame playing in the Big 12, playing almost a schedule exclusively of 5A, 6A, and 7A teams. And Kewanee, almost the polar opposite, the big fish in a pond of mostly smaller schools in the Three Rivers. Usually that will catch up with you in games like this. And I think that did a little bit here. Peoria, Notre Dame, solid but not spectacular football team, did okay in the Big 12 this year, beat who they should beat, struggled against the better teams in the conference, which is to be kind of expected with that kind of enrollment disparity. So not really sure where they were at coming into this game. I wasn't, let's put it this way, I wasn't surprised when I saw the result. It was the way that I picked the game to go, and primarily because of those reasons.
All right, let's go down to Class 5A here. Actually, was there something else I wanted to check on? No. 5A, Seuss. We already hit on Naz Prairie Ridge, so we'll go ahead past that. Trying to scan here quickly. St. Francis really put a hurting on Rochelle. Can't say I was too shocked, although I do want to say that was a really nice season for the Hubs. That was a tough first-round matchup.
Yeah, it was a brutal draw, and they were kind of dancing between the 4 and 5A brackets. And at one point in time, I was kind of feeling like maybe both Morris and Rochelle were going to end up in the 4A bracket. And my immediate response was that's going to be a problem for the 4A bracket, because I thought both of those teams could make quite a bit of noise in the 4A bracket. I still think Morris is still going to be heard from deep in this 5A bracket, but yeah, like you said, tough draw for them in the middle of the draw, especially considering some of the other first round draws in that North bracket. If it would have tweaked one way or another for Rochelle, they could have had a much more fortuitous draw here than they ended up getting.
Anthony Jones asked, biggest surprise scores in 5A. I think that's certainly on the south side of the bracket. And I don't know if I would say surprise scores. Maybe the Troy Triad, that game. Joliet Catholic over Peoria. I don't know. Seuss, how did you pick that game?
Oh, I did pick Joliet Catholic.
I thought so. Yeah.
It was kind of in a situation where I felt like if push came to shove, Joliet Catholic could just put the plow down and run behind their offensive line and move it effectively enough. I think, and once again, this is another situation where both teams had to play in it. Pretty steady rain for like almost the entire first half, and I think that limited Peoria more than it did Joliet Catholic. They weren't kind of able to throw it maybe as much as they would have liked to. But that being said, Peoria needed to get some stops at some point in time, and they really didn't do that. Joliet Catholic was able to sustain drives, so no matter what Peoria would have been able to do offensively, eventually they were going to have to get some stops, and they really didn't do it.
Providence over Morton. That surprised you at all?
I saw that game too, and I picked Providence. I didn't feel good about the pick at the time. To be frank, it was a really ugly football game. A ton of turnovers, a ton of penalties. The second half was one of the strangest situations I'd ever seen. We went into halftime with Providence leading the game 21-14. Nobody scored in the second half, but there was so much going on that like it felt like we were scoring, if that makes any sense. It was like Morton kept driving. Providence would pick off the pass, or they'd make a play. Providence's offense was struggling moving the ball, but they'd get it down to like the 20, and then something strange would happen. Like they went for it on fourth down in inches. They didn't get it. Morton gets the ball back. They fumble it back to him. There's just so much stuff that was going on back and forth.
Is this a game where I'm blanking, the 3 interceptions?
Yes, Luke Leverett.
There you go. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, 3 interceptions, and he also had a pick on a 2-point conversion attempt, didn't he?
Yes, and he almost had another interception for what would have been the game-tying score in the end zone that just went off his fingertips. So, actually had the potential to have 4 interceptions plus the 2-point pick. So I would have thought at some point in time they would have said, "Hey, maybe we should stop throwing at this guy." But yeah, it was quite the effort, and I was actually surprised to learn after the game. I looked it up. 8 other guys had picked off 3 passes in a 5A playoff game. So I fully expected that to be maybe a shared state record with 1 or 2 other guys, but it had happened 8 other times in 5A playoff games where someone had 3 interceptions in one game. So just a really interesting game for him. And like I said, I don't know if I've ever seen a game that featured no points in the second half that was so interesting to watch from I don't know what's going to happen next here, because just about everything did happen that could happen.
Let's see. Anything else in 5A?
No, I think that was about the way that I kind of expected that bracket to kind of play out for the most part. A little bit of hiccups in the South, like you mentioned. Triad's win over Muhammad Seymour surprised me a little bit, but interesting that we're going to get a more Sacred Heart Griffin game in round 2, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be previewing the second round at 11 a.m. on Thursday right here live on YouTube and Facebook. Looking at 6A, starting up in my neck of the woods, Fox Valley Conference. Friday night, a couple games there. Lake Zurich and Crystal Lake Central were tied 7-7 at halftime, and into the well into that third quarter, Lake Zurich was able to put that one away. Was a little surprised to see how long Central held into that game, particularly because they were without their starting quarterback, Jason Penza. And then Cary Grove, I expected Cary Grove to win, and I expected Cary Grove to win by several touchdowns, but they really put a hurting on Libertyville. I'm feeling pretty good about the Trojans here in the postseason after seeing the way they played there.
Yeah, that was the game that I wasn't quite sure what to make of. I favored Cary Grove, but like you said, didn't expect them to kind of take the margin that they did. And I really felt like if this game went their way, second round looks favorable for them. Then you get into a potential quarterfinal round, and when you're at that point, you expect to see good football teams. But I felt like this bracket opened up pretty nice for Cary Grove if they could get on a little bit of a roll.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about the Trojans, as I said. After the way the first round played out, I think they're the favorite in 6A North.
Yeah, I can see that argument. I mean, when I'm looking at it now and seeing how Lake Zurich kind of struggled in that game,
yeah,
I'm really interested to see how the second round game plays out for them. And I wasn't really convinced that was going to be as questionable in my mind as it is now.
Yep,
when we started the playoff situation.
I agree. On the south side of the bracket, the top seeds held serve. Blue Island Eisenhower with a double overtime game there against Dunlap. Souce, anything interesting?
That was a game that, from what I was picking up on, was kind of a wild one on Friday night, and Eisenhower does have a pretty significant weapon in Andre Lovett, who is kind of a do everything guy for them. And he made the difference, I think, ultimately in that game, but big challenge awaiting them in the next round. So a nice win for Blue Island Eisenhower. I believe it's the first for that coaching staff in several years there, but they've been building that program up from the point where it was pretty much at the bottom depths of the conference that they're in, and now they're a consistent playoff qualifier, and nice to see them have a little success.
All right, let's go over to Class 7A. We talked about Bradley Bourbonnais there with a nice win over St. Charles North. Glenbard East with a win, and then Glenbard South won in 8A, didn't they?
They're in 5A.
Oh, they're 5A. Did I
yeah, they won.
Yeah. They won. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice weekend there for the Upstate 8.
Yeah. Definitely with South Elgin winning in 8A as well.
Yeah.
They picked up some wins there. The other schools that qualified from the conference more in the vein of kind of happy to be there type of situation with East Aurora and West Chicago. But the big three in that league did work this weekend. So advancing into the next round, and it's probably been a while, I'd have to look, since the Upstate 8 has had 3 teams moving into the second round.
Let's see. Well, Batavia, there's another one. I expected Batavia to win the game against Brother Rice. I did not expect it to be 46-0.
It was a weekend where, for the most part, I didn't really have any strong reactions to what was going on in any games. I had a strong reaction when I saw what was going on in that Batavia Brother Rice game early on, trying to dodge the raindrops as I was following, the results of the games on Friday night. I'm like, whoa, hold on a minute. I mean, I did expect Batavia to win that football game. I expected it to be a much larger fight. And now I'm of the opinion that whoever gets in Batavia's path better strap it up, because not that I didn't think they were a threat do some major damage in this bracket before, but it appears this team is firing on absolutely all cylinders right now.
I'm gonna apologize to Willowbrook. I overlooked Willowbrook all season long. I picked them to lose against Yorkville. Came out and played a really good game, picked up a 21-13 win. So I didn't expect it.
Willowbrook is really, really tricky to try to figure out based on the results of their season. And this has been this way for a while. If you go back, and sometimes this doesn't mean a lot, but Willowbrook had one of the smallest playoff point totals in the state for any team of any record. They simply haven't played that many teams this year of quality. So it makes them a very, very hard read heading into a postseason. In past years, you kind of would give them the benefit of the doubt. They've made some deep runs when they were in 6A.
Yep.
Made the semifinal round a couple of times. And you kind of said, well, it's playoff time. That schedule doesn't matter. They've done it, and they've done it before. Well, they kind of took a little bit of a step back. So you're wondering if that still held. There were just some lateral concerns with Willowbrook heading into this game. I too picked Yorkville. I thought Yorkville had been better battle tested for this game and had the kind of defense that you would want in this game. So I kind of overlooked them too in this situation. So, and now looking ahead, I kind of think they have a little bit better shot that round 2 game than maybe I would have initially thought.
Alex says, how about Collinsville? Big win for them, 28 seed. I'll tell you what, Alex, I'm not surprised about that at all. I actually picked Collinsville to win the game. That's no disrespect to Maine West. It's just they have not done much postseason wise in their school history. I look at the conference. I just I like Collinsville actually. That's a pretty solid program. So
yeah, Collinsville plays that independent schedule, plays a lot of the smaller mid-range teams in Southern Illinois because it's really the only teams that they can get to schedule them in that situation, but usually does pretty well. It is a program that has come on fast because if you go back 4 or 5 years, there wasn't much to talk about in Collinsville football land. So
nope.
They have definitely a massive turnaround there, an interesting team, and the kind of team that I think you go in as kind of a wild card in this postseason, and they teach you real quick that they're ready to be here.
Noah Battle put in some work for Downers Grove North against Kenwood. Downers Grove North, a 42-13 winner over Kenwood there. We've talked about how wide open this bracket feels, Souce, on that north side or on the upper side of the bracket. Really kind of feeling that way after the first round still.
Yeah, I think so. There are a lot of teams in here that I think are good football teams.
Yep.
But haven't really shown me that they're, I guess, great football teams. They might be, but I just haven't seen full evidence of that yet. So I think a lot of teams are going to have an opportunity to, basically put up or shut up in the second round in regards to, their futures.
Anything else in 7A?
I think that it was an interesting bracket. I was really kind of looking at, and we didn't talk about this very much, but I was really kind of looking at how that middle of that draw fared it out because we had that weird situation where that I brought up last week about the double forfeit, and some of these matchups weren't actually supposed to be the matchups that they were. So I was kind of glad to see the upper seeds were able to kind of advance in that 14, 15, 16, 17 range because they actually weren't playing the opponents that they probably should have played in the first round. So seeing those teams all move along, I guess justice is served in the long term. So, good for them in getting it done. But I think 7A is the most intriguing bracket, other than having Mount Carmel on the top line and feeling like they're the favorite. Beyond that, I think it could be open season. We could have a crazy week 2 in 7A bracket.
All right, one more to go, Souce. Class 8A. What do you think here? Where do you want to start?
This was, you look at it after the fact, so few underseeds were able to actually pull off the win. And when I looked in this bracket beforehand, I want to say I probably had maybe 6 or 7 of them that I felt like at least had a chance to pull off that win. And in reality, that was not the way it played out. I mean, we had a lot of wide margins in the first round. There were very few what I would consider to be close games in here, and some of them were just, to be frank, flat out routes. So, that's strange from the 8A bracket, because usually there's a depth to it that almost requires that we have 4 or 5 first round games that come down to the wire.
I mean, yeah, usually you're talking, I mean, we that this bracket is 27, 28 teams deep, we feel, and to see this few teams on the, from the lower seeds advance in the second round is shocking and probably pretty unheard of, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go back and look, but I mean, I can't remember the last time we only had, 2 teams from the bottom half of the draw winning games. And to be honest with you, those 2 games were kind of games that I thought were going to go that way.
Right.
So I mean, it was like I felt like St. Ignatius was the favorite in that Joliet West game, and while Lions Stevenson was kind of a toss-up in my mind, I did pick Lions. So it was like I said, there's usually 1 or 2 teams that just kind of rise up out of this bracket and are like, hey, we're going to hang around a little while. We don't care if our seed's 24. And that may still happen with the 2 that are remaining, but usually we have more options to choose from on that list.
He is Steve Soucie. I am Kyle Nabors. You are watching live with Friday Night Drive. We are recapping the first round of the playoffs. We're going to be here for just a couple more minutes. So if you have any more questions or comments for us, get those into the chat right now if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. Seuss, I'm going to go to you for now, though. Kind of just give us a little bow on this first round, man.
It's one of those weird years where we, had a lot of teams pretty much do what we thought they were going to do. I mean, there always seems to be in this, especially in this first week, 5 or 6 games where we're like, hey, look at these guys. Didn't know that was going to happen. And we're not having that conversation this year. I mean, there were some conversation pieces, but like they were Prairie Ridge Nazareth, and that was a conversation piece before the ball was ever kicked off.
Yeah,
it wasn't like we were waiting to see the result, and then we had this big blow up conversation about it. This was expected. So there was a lot of those games out there that I thought were interesting first round matchups. They proved to be, but most of it was favorites acting like favorites and moving on to the second round. So history shows that that's not going to last. So I'm very, very interested in what happens in the second round, since we didn't get much of it at all in the first round. Where's it going to come from? Who's going to do that? Because very, very chalky first round in regards to, what we got, what we were expecting.
Yeah, it really was. But make sure you stick to FridayNightDrive.com all week long, and we get ready for that second round. A couple more comments coming in here. Let's see here. Fred Torres says, I didn't see too many surprises. Were you guys surprised with any of the results? I think we just hit on that. Thanks, Fred. Benji says, Canelan. Is there a specific question about what about Canelan? I think he had asked earlier. Oh, we hit on Canelan a little earlier. Let's see. They had the 56-20 win over Riverside Brookfield. They played really well. I think, as we said earlier, Sue, it's like between the way they played and Lake Zurich struggling a bit with Crystal Lake Central, I think we both feel like this is an interesting matchup in the second round.
Well, you just look at what Canelan's schedule is, who they lost to. They're not your typical 6-3 team. We knew that going in. This was a win that I expected them to get. And now moving into this next round, like you just mentioned, I looked at this bracket beforehand. I raised a little bit eyebrow at a potential Canelan Lake Zurich game, feeling like Lake Zurich would still be a pretty strong favorite. Not sure I feel that way anymore. I feel like this is a little bit closer to a 50-50 game in the second round than I would have originally anticipated.
All right, guys, we got to run. For Steve Soucie, I am Kyle Nabors. Thank you, everyone who joined us live this morning. Come back with us on Thursday morning. It'll be Seuss and I, along with Joe Stevenson and Michael Dwojak. You can also get the Friday Night Drive podcast for the Illinois Valley edition that'll be coming with JT Penalty and Eddie Carriffio. For now, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you once again, everyone. We'll talk to you guys later.
Come to Candlelight Inn, home of the original Chicken George and Jan Sauce. Dine in, carry out, and catering available. Located in Rock Falls and Sterling, Illinois, as well as Clinton, Iowa. Come try our original Chicken George today.
Need a roof, vinyl windows, or doors? Call R.E. Duchesne Construction. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau and servicing Will, Grundy, and Kendall counties, call R.E. Duchesne. 815-722-2821. Financing available. Find out more online at reduchene.com.
Are going to come right down to the wire.
Yeah, he really likes this field.
Team of the Week MVP.
I like Reich.
I like Reich.
Since 2016, it's been my privilege to represent the people of the 63rd District. I want to continue representing you as an independent voice in Springfield.
I like Reich. We like Reich.
We're here to help you with your problems that result from an automobile accident or an injury on the job or the loss of a loved one. There's no reason you should go through this alone and guess that you're doing things right.
We deal with tragedies that affect families and individuals every day.
Come here and protect your interests. We've been doing this collectively for over 100 years. Let's put that experience to work for you.